Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today as we go through the Power of Seven in Marketing summary of the book. I really want to appreciate you being with us today. My name is Faris Alami, author of the book, and I'm honored that you have joined us today. This book has been in the making for years. As a matter of fact, reflecting back, it might have taken me almost 20 some years to finish it. And the reason I share that with you, because while it looks like it's really easy done overnight, it really has taken me years to get it to where it is today. So with that, if you allow me, I'm going to share my screen to share with you a few slides about the book and the summary of it. I'm hoping by now you can see my screen. Taking it yes. If you want to give me a thumbs up, that's great. I appreciate that. Let's make sure that you can still see the screen. I'm going to stop share. I'm going to share it again. I'm sorry about that. All right. All right. So you should be now the Power of Seven in Marketing. Welcome. I'm Faris Alami. I'm the author of the book. I'm really honored that you have decided to join us. This should take us 15 to 20 minutes to walk you through what the book is all about and to potentially answer any questions that you may have. Just a little bit about the agenda of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about my experience, talk about how the book works and what it's offer, and then talk about how you could use it to your business, okay? What tools is included and how you could implement it. And of course, wouldn't be a good author if I didn't say ways also to purchase the book. I'd love to hear from you. What country are you joining us from today? Last time we had people from all over the place, from Germany, from the Middle East, from Asia. Love to hear where are you joining us from today. You could put that in the chat, or you could put it in the, in the Q&A section. For those who have not met me before, I'm honored that you're here. I've been blogging for the last 15 or so years on a weekly basis. I'm also have been advising some of the large institutions that you might have heard of, from the World Bank to smaller organizations and local communities. This experience have spanned from 1 to 7 years to 10 years in some of the organizations I worked with, and I've been a mentor to many organizations and students all over the world. My journey didn't start overnight. My journey started when I came to the US because of the Gulf War in 1990 with Iraq invasion to Kuwait. Being a Palestinian original in Kuwait at the time, I had to flee the country after I got in trouble. And then in 1990, when I came to the US, a few months later, I found myself being homeless and stateless. And then I started a t-shirt business as I was being fortunate to be part of a meeting to be included in. The t-shirt led to wholesale perfume and beauty product, to e-commerce, to being an executive at a retail, Macy's department stores, a large department stores for those who are not calling from the US. And then in 2003, I found international strategic management, which is focused on supporting entrepreneurs starting or growing businesses, with another focus as well as supporting the organization that supports them to launch those activities, mainly in underserved, underrepresented, or under-resourced communities, whether here in the US or abroad. I've been fortunate to work with lots of names that you might have heard of, and many names that you have never heard of because of their sizes. And I'm hoping that by sharing this, not to show in a bragging matter, but more of a sharing matter, to allow you to understand the background that got me to be here with you today. I've also have been lucky because of my maybe story that I have been able to carve through my journey to be having some sample of the media coverage here, from print and many magazines and many newspapers, to local TV, to international TV, to podcast, whether I host my own or been a guest of many throughout my journey. So let's talk about the book. What does this book offer? What is this Power of Seven in Marketing? A couple of you might have read it. So those who have, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. For those who have not, this is a quick overview of it. So this is the table of content, what you will get when you buy the book. It's going to have some special things, of course. It's going to talk about marketing. I'm going to cover some basic things in the book. I had to, because I felt this book was designed for those who are like me, individuals who may be struggling to understand language. I wanted to make sure that it's simple, also maybe those who are trying to simplify the methodology, because I've met with so many people, and when you ask them about how to do A or B, they make it sound like you have to have a brain surgery degree to be able to do it. And my goal with this book was to say, hey, you could do this, you got this. Here's some simple steps that you could do to make it work. I also want to make sure that you don't think that this is the book is the answer. It's not. It's part of the answer, and it's part of what you will do overall. This is just another activity that you could choose to do. So as you can see through this, chapters here, I'm not going to read each one of them because you could clearly read them. The idea is to help you understand the process of how to get to these 7, insights that you could gain to have the power of 7 within the marketing that you're doing. The book theme is pretty simple. I'm taking my life journey of what I've learned personally, as well as what I've worked with. As you know, I've been fortunate enough to support thousands of entrepreneurs in over 100 countries start or grow businesses, as well as the organization that supported them. So I've gained a lot of insights just listening to stories and hearing from entrepreneurs. And I took the time to map out what they've done, what others have done, and created what I call the system that many of them have used in this marketing space. So what's in the book? Well, you will find all kinds of, things that I might have picked up throughout the years that I've said to many other people before you. In my case, I didn't have the luxury of starting a business. I had no choice but to start a business. So that led me to trying to sell some things on the streets, that led me to trying to sell some things on the phone, that led me to get a lot of no's. And it took me a minute to understand what would it really take to make a sale happen. And this is where the marketing comes in place. My journey, for those who haven't met me, started with a Palestinian background, growing up in Kuwait, carrying a refugee document stating that I'm a Palestinian from Palestine, issued by Egypt. So to make it a little bit more complex. And during the Gulf War, I had to flee Kuwait after, a little bit of discussion with some of the soldiers there. I was lucky enough, one of them said, you better leave, and I was able to leave the country. That allowed me to come to the US. And in the US, I started initially selling to people that I knew. And then when I started going to the streets, I really quickly learned that you had to get maybe to about 100 people to talk to get maybe 1 to 2 to 3 maybe sales for the day. And this is where the power of 7 somewhat started fabricating itself as I started reflecting in the last 20 years what got me there or didn't. And then as I started discussing this with other entrepreneurs through the journey of advising them, coaching them, or mentoring them. So the formula is really simple, right? And please know that this is meant to be intentional versus I'm going to call it passive. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do other marketings, and you should. This is just one more thing to be added to your activities. And this is why I made it really simple. So it's not a big burden, but it's a process. So you'll see that the whole book is divided in chapters, and each chapter will have some theme. In this chapter, we're talking about marketing, understanding the basics of it. Some of it you might think that's really basic. I already know. That's great. I hope that you will find that through the process of me unfolding it in a simple way, that you gain a better understanding of what you can do with what you have to leverage the knowledge, to move it forward, to defining it and making it work. So each chapter, what you will notice is that will have what I call principles in it. So in this case, we're talking about defining the market, understanding the sales works, finding what the sales pitch or the sales niche that you want to go after. This is part of your understanding the principles of marketing. I mean, I'd love to hear from you. One of the things I always ask in any of the programs that we run, and I'm lucky enough to run programs in lots of countries, is who's your ideal customer? Who's your ideal audience that would buy from you? I'm not saying that not everyone can buy. I'm saying, who are you going to go after? What are specifics ones that you would want them to see buy from you? My example would be, I'm looking for organizations that want to support entrepreneurs in a local community that may be in underserved, underrepresented, or under-resourced. That's my focus. Does it mean that I have not served individuals or countries that are rich? Of course I have. But my focus is if they don't come to me, I'm going to go after those individuals or organizations that are looking to support entrepreneurs in these communities that I described, right? So this is where the ideal customer comes in place. What you will find is once you identify that, more people will come to you, because if you're clear about your message, people are going to feel that you could potentially support them, clarify the message that they're trying to do to get them the results that they're needing. Once we go through this chapter, you'll find, and again, I'm using this just as an example for the chapters of the book, all the chapters will have something similar, right? So discovering, once I lead you to the simplicity, I'm going to add to it, right? So then I'm going to talk about how do you create this, client-centric focus? How do you create a plan? How do you learn how to attract them? How do you define them? How do you define what they want, right? And then we're going to build on that. I'd love to hear from you. What tools have you used to keep your marketing going or to track your marketing? Because we're going to use some tools here. So one of the things, the tools that you'll see, so the chapter will have a theme, then we'll have some basic information, then we're going to build a little bit on it, then we're going to introduce a tool. Now, these tools you might have had before, you might have used before, and that's great. I'm hoping that they will be simple enough for you to plug and play as well. So you'll see that there's a step-by-step process to plan the marketing that you want to go after and how to create a conversation with your potential customers or client. So these are steps here. You'll see that I'm going to ask you to create a list. I'm going to ask you to, categorize these contacts. I'm going to ask you to schedule a contact dates that you're going to reach out to them and touch base with them. I'm going to ask you to come up with a methodology to talk to them. You just don't want to talk just to talk. You want to talk with some specifics, right? And then you'll notice that these tools will have, I'm going to call them more tools in them, right? So it's kind of like a toolbox. Once you open it, there are more tools inside of it. Then you're going to find some questions that will help you to get there. Because you might say, I don't know where to start. Well, we're going to start with make a list. Well, I don't know. I don't have a list. Well, let's have you think through who could potentially be on the list. And that's really what we're talking about here. So that you'll find other questions to help you build on the theme that we have discussed within that chapter. Then you'll notice that, I'm going to ask you at the end, as you know, the power of 7 is about creating 7 potential customers that you will touch over a period of 7 times, that you'll have ways to touch them with that period. Excuse me. And in this case, I'm going to give you a chart to say, go ahead and make a list of 7. You'll see throughout the book, I'm going to ask for 7 that I call should be customers, 7 that would like for them to be customers, and 7 would be a dream for them to be customers. And each one of that list will have these ways to touch them. And I'm going to ask you to also find 7 people within that organizations to touch them, right? So you'll see that I'm building slowly these numbers, and with time you'll have a nice database as well as nice ways to connect with the people that you want to connect with. Now, of course, at one point you might have to take some of them off because they might tell you don't call me or don't talk to me or it's not the right fit, but you could find other ways to stay in touch with them, because not necessarily that you want to sell them, but it's about relationship that you build with them. And then once we do that, we will then talk about the systems that you could implement with the tools that you have built with us. Then you will notice that in every chapter, at the end of it, what I learned through my journey, that if you don't reflect, you don't grow. I always tell people, you do things to keep moving forward and you reflect to grow. So at the end of every chapter, I'm going to ask you to take a FinGen moment. And this comes from my podcast that I have called FinGen Podcast, or the show. And basically, I interview entrepreneurs from all over the world every other week. And then every other week in between, I discuss a topic that you have asked me to speak on. So the moment would be, let's reflect on what we read in this chapter and see what can we move forward with what we learned from this chapter. The tools, the ideas, the concepts, can we implement any of it? What I didn't want you to do is read a chapter and move to the next chapter for the reading purposes. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. My goal was to really support you by creating ways that you create a system that you could implement within your business. And then you will find that after the FinGen moment, I will ask you for action steps, right? So what are you going to do now that you took the moment to reflect, and what you learned and what you could do with it? I've been lucky enough to have people recommend some of my work. This is some of the people testimonials about some of the work that I've done. I don't want to take too much time. As I mentioned, this was supposed to be an overview of the book and how it works. The book is called The Power of Seven in Marketing, and you are welcome to, purchase it. I gave you a nice overview here about the book and how it works, and I hope that you could find ways to support us. You could support us in lots of ways for those who are interested, and I've had a few of the questions come to me about how can we support this first. Well, first of all, thank you for asking. Of course, you could buy the book, which is one way, but that's obviously, as we all know, it's not priced for me to be rich, but it is priced for me to have a moment of conversations about it. You could also book us to have a meeting with the author or signage or a release. You can also have a workshop about the book or workshop through the strategy that I have within the book. We have lots of strategy. We could just pull out one of them at a time and do it. And of course, I would encourage you to please ask your local library to carry our book. That's one way to make it accessible for those who may be not able to purchase it. There are three ways that you could purchase it right now, or options on our website. You could go to our website and buy it, and you could buy a printed copy, you could buy a digital copy, you could buy a digital copy and a consultation with it, and that someone walks you through the strategies with you. So these are the three ways that we have it right now that you could order. And, of course, I'd love to hear from you now. So maybe you could just tell me one word about today's discussion, put that in the chat or somewhere in the Q&A section. Or you could just text it to me for those who have my number, or email it. Okay, just one word about today's session. I'm going to leave you with final thoughts. If you want to pull up your phone and use your camera, this QR will take you to a URL, and then the URL will ask you a few questions about what you liked about today, what you didn't like, if there's anything else that I can do to improve. And of course, for those who are liking to stay in touch, you could find me in all the social medias, from Facebook to LinkedIn to Instagram and to Twitter. And of course, you could again use your phone to download the QR, just the camera, it will work to get you my contact information. I want to stop right here and say thank you so much for being with us. It's my honor to have you, and it's a privilege for me to be with you. I hope that you find this session was fruitful and informative, and I hope you find ways to support us and keep us engaged with you. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day.